Is it 8 o'clock? Yeah, it's 8 o'clock. Let's
Stream.
go.
Good to see everybody in the chat. Hello to Shakos and Sprues. Well done there, being first up. Hello to Darren. Hello to Paul Howells. Sorry, look at me drunk in charge of a computer. And hello to Spam and Egg. So, it's been a long while, hasn't it? 2 weeks, and time has flown.
It's been a week and a bit. Some things have changed.
That was an excellent gig, although it made me feel very old.
Last week.
That's a different story. Fuck me. To be fair, 2 or 3 days I was back to normal.
That, by the way?
Having picked up some sort of cold or viral disease at the concert. It took a couple of days to get over that, but Jesus Christ, every joint was absolutely knackered. Yeah, which regrets possibly at 52. Hello, because of Ben Crispin. Good to see you, mate. So, for those of you who are new to the show, welcome to the Yellow Belly Tabletop live stream. We're going to spend the next couple of hours talking about tabletop wargaming and associated tabletop hobby. We've got our usual itinerary. Apparently David's audio's clipping. Okay, we have been having some faff about with audio sources, so just let us. He's coming clean for me. Yeah, or whether that's whether that's actually registering in OBS, I don't know.
Remains to be seen.
David, just give me a quick brown fox. Let me check your audio level.
Quick brown fox jumped over the lazy
I'm
dog
boost you
and
slightly.
we went and watched some fabulous hailstorm. You're going to boost me. Don't deafen everybody at home.
Okay. Jesus. Paul says there's a massive delay on David. Okay, apologies for that, guys. As I say, I'm looking at the OBS front end now, and I've got audio sync and video sync with him. Don't ask, cheese me. So, God, they're all turned up now. Hello, Orinoco. Hello, cheese me. Hello, Darren. So Darren's just said, starting to paint the characters from the old 80s D&D cartoon. 3D prints a friend's got... Okay, there is a definite delay. Is that my audio as well?
Yeah, there is.
Maybe maybe it's because David's in a sauna. Possibly. David's just going to go and check the live stream, which he's got open in a tab. So I shall chit chat, talk, chit chat. Anyway, so we're going to follow our usual.
Either way, tell the people what we're doing.
He's summoning Cthulhu. We're going to do our. I'm just going to check quickly because I don't have any actually, I have got a yellow warning on my YouTube console that it is not receiving enough data. So that could be my computer basically being shit and dying. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Hang on, I've had an idea. Be right back.
Okay, anyway, while David's away and we're trying to sort, he's back.
Are we synced back up?
Again, I can't really tell because it looks fine in my console, but over the next couple of hours, we'll follow our usual format. So the first thing that we'll do is have a quick discussion about what we're going to be hobbying on while tonight's stream is going on. Then we'll tell you a little bit about what we did at Gaming Club on Monday night. Well, actually, there's 2 gaming clubs to cover. And then we'll have a chat about some news, and there's a ton of that. No,
the audio is no better.
Are you watching it live, mate?
Yeah, the audio is now better.
Okay. Not sure how I can fix that without quitting the stream and restarting it.
Just having a look.
I've only got one. Let's get into some of the stuff that's happening tonight, and then hopefully we'll get back on.
We're good now, apparently.
Apparently we'll get back on track. What I'll try and do is kill every resource on my computer that's non-essential. So let's get into it. As I say, there's quite a few news items for us to cover. Then at about 9 o'clock, we'll go to our main topic, like we do most weeks. This week, we're going to talk about terrain recommendations within game set rules, essentially, because it's something that varies massively between game systems. And having done a bit of research earlier today, what's the best way to put this? I think it's something that a lot of sort of game designers are sleeping on, and they're not giving enough guidance, I feel, for their games. But anyway, we'll get to that when we do main topic o'clock. Okay, mate. So do you want me to go first?
No, I can go first because I've got my shit ready. Then I can turn my phone off, and then we're good.
Okay, you do that. That doesn't look like terrain.
It not be terrain because it's painting comp week and it's heavy metal.
Yes, well.
Cue the world's biggest boat getting painted tonight.
Yes, Paul, I did get your photos.
Because we love dreadnoughts. We love all the dwarves. So I have
Cheat.
Fury to paint. Orc's Bane, which is a named dwarven boat. The dreadnought that we all know and love. And then 2 little baby hunters.
So is that Orc's Bane is what, a named ship?
Yeah, it's a named ship.
Is that some sort of resin thing?
Yeah, it's a different resin prow on the front to the normal. It's the same boat as...
Oh, okay.
Bollocks, I'm launching things. It's the same boat as the Rune Axe, top down.
Got you.
However, it's just got a different prow.
Yep, got you.
Because the the dwarves only do extra large or medium and smaller. They don't do large shit.
I didn't realise that till you told me that the other day. That there's this gap in their fleet.
The gap in their fleet is massive. So we're going to try and get these to match these that I did a while ago, and Muggins here didn't. Oh, no picks for you because you're an orangutan, Paul.
Oh, sorry. So try that again.
Right, tonight, seeing as we have technical difficulties, we will mainly be painting dwarf boats. So we have the Fury.
What?
The Orc's Bane. 2 little hunters. And this was 3D printed from Mantic's Vault, which is the Dwarven Dreadnought. We also have in the background the little airship, which is
that's
3D
cute.
print. And
you get
gets cuter. Would you like a little crow to go with your Dwarven fleet?
Is there a guy on that, or is it just like literally a big flying crow?
No, it's just a bird. It's just a bird.
Fine.
Just a bird. We're going to try and get them to match this original style that I did a while ago.
I love the basing on that. Basing's worked really well on that.
The basing itself is, I want to say, dark sea blue, stippled on a different colour blue, and then a shit ton of clear acrylic, and stippled on some white ink, because obviously it's semi-translucent, so it looks like sea foam.
That's a good shout.
They're amazing.
Yeah, so Shakos has asked, are they resins or 1s and 0s? Now, I think everything but your Dreadnought you bought, didn't you?
1s and 0s.
Oh, okay, you did print those. Okay, cool.
Everything else is resin, and then they're on 1s and 0s bases because I'm an orangutan and I apparently lose NDF ones. But we gloss over that.
Yeah. Okay then, mate. So that's what you're up to tonight then, yeah?
That's what I'm up to, because the theme for this month is heavy metal. Yeah. So let's paint some heavy metal dwarves.
I'm not too stressed because I've got the week off work, so I'm going to be I'm going to be smashing my painting competition out over tomorrow and the weekend. I'm probably going to make some dents into my armoured Flames of War, my Germans, because that should be fairly quick to do.
You're actually going to get some paint on them?
Yeah, well, I've got primer on a few, but we need to basically take it. And I was thinking, to be honest, even if I only do a couple of whatever they call them, units, companies, squadrons, I don't know what the technical terms are for Flames. I'm not that au fait with it. But even if I only do a couple of groups of tanks, it'll be enough for a painting competition.
True.
Shako, you painted a ton of the dwarves. Darren's all done. Well, I'm not surprised, Darren, your productivity being what it is. For myself, I'm going back to, or rather, I'm sticking with our sort of like self-imposed limitation. Just adjust my camera because this is massive. And I'm back to the terrain. So I did consider, in fact, what this is the point. We'll talk about this on stream. This is what I'm going to be doing. I'm just basically going to be picking away at the paint detailing on this goddamn building, which, for those of you who don't know, is one of the TT Combat Carnivale buildings. This is got some fancy name in Italian. I don't know what set it is, but it's like a two-sided large building. With sort of, it's almost like a administrative or political building. I did think about doing let's get rid of that. I did think about doing something else, but I decided it was a bit too intensive for on stream. But I still want to get your guys' opinions. So today is the last day for the Dungeonalia event on Tabletop. Now, those of you who are regulars will remember that David and I had some ideas, and one of the things I wanted to do was do a terrain table for my Frostgrave, and we wanted to do a specific mission which had quite specific terrain requirements. Now,
yes,
for those of you who are regulars on Tabletop, I've already put up my project, but only with basically, long story short, I had huge ambitions and managed to get hardly anywhere with it. But I managed to get the first part of the project up so that at least I've got something in for when the guys sort of draw a line under the event. Obviously, as a project, it's still active, and I'm just going to keep pushing ahead. Now, what I did was we created some sewers for the gaming board, but rather than snow them up and make them all icy so that they were pretty much, because I mean, you're not going to have frozen sewers in most games. So rather than actually do that, I've just painted the sewers as vanilla. Stick them in any fantasy setting. They're just like sewer channels with brackish water in.
Are you meant to be showing the people at home these?
No, I'm not, because they're upstairs. But
okay, I just wanted to ask.
I had an idea for, so we're going to add the snow and ice, add the ice effect to the sewer channels after the fact. And I looked at a few options online, and I came across a great video by Marco Frisoni, I think you pronounce it, who's an insane painter. And he did something with acrylic shards, and he built them up in layers. So what I thought I would do, I bought some frosted acetate sheets from Amazon. And the idea is, what I'm going to do is cut like a strip, which will go in the bottom of the sewer. And then I'm going to cut the rest into shards or fragments and glue it in layers on top of the base strip with a slight overhang so it gets wider as it goes up. And then I should be able to just drop them into the sewers to create the sort of broken ice look that we want for Frostgrave. Again, this idea is still in the earliest stages in my head, but I imagine what I can do is maybe use dilute blue paint or blue inks to go between the shards and create some colour tinting, and then maybe dry brush it so that it picks out the edges and looks all frozen and frosty.
Inks are probably your friend here.
But that's the idea. So I thought, oh, I could do that. But the problem is, I figured the problem with that is I'm going to get into like measuring and cutting, and it's too much for stream. It's going to require too much concentration, too much focus, and I'm not going to be able to do it and sort of chat to you guys and interact with everybody. So although it's a terrain thing I want to get done, it's going to have to wait till another day when I've got a little bit more attention to put on it. Plus the fact it's something that's brand new to me. I'm not just going through the motions. I'm really going to have to think about it every step of the way. So, yeah, that was an idea, but I decided it probably wasn't right for tonight. But for those of you who are interested, follow my project on OTT, and I'll show you how I get on with this idea. And whether it actually works, because if it gives, because this is dirt cheap from Amazon, this is a sheet of 300 micron frosted acetate, like you'd use on overhead projectors and shit. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway. So I think we're done with desktop cams for a bit, so let's just get rid of that because that's in my face. Right. So that's what we're doing tonight. Let's just get some paint on the old wet palette, and then we'll show you some pickies from our games at club. Now, last week, which obviously we didn't discuss because we weren't here, we were elsewhere. You didn't have a game, did you, mate? You sort of perched.
I introduced Leon into the world of Frostgrave.
Oh, you did actually, yeah. I forgot about that. I didn't get any photos of it.
We built a list, played a game on a 2-foot table, got him used to some of the rules, etc. Because again, he it's one of his first war games, etc. He's played a couple now. He's played like some Gaslands and some other bits and pieces. He walked away from it really enjoying it. He wants to play some more.
Cool.
Which is cool and good to hear. But then after that, I came and perched and assisted you in playing Bolt Action, didn't I?
So not Monday just gone, but the Monday before, Ricky and I managed to play another game of Bolt Action. This was, I brought 1,000 points of early war Japanese against his mid-late war Germans. And it was a really good, close game. I think it was technically a draw at the end.
Yes, it was because...
such a stalemate. Yet again, this always keeps happening to me with Bolt Action. Ricky got a fantastic preparatory bombardment on me and absolutely pinned half of my... Well, I think he pinned everything but one of my units with 2 pin markers. It was an absolutely brutal opening to the game. But he tends to keep doing that to me. But that's just the way the dice fall. That's how it goes sometimes. And we both had very similar lists in terms of we got an artillery piece and some machine gun teams, etc.
And a tank, except his tank is more efficient than your tank.
Yeah, what's he got? A Panzer IV.
Panzer IV.
Yeah, it rather outclasses my crappy little Chiha, but it was still a close game. So yeah, great.
And his has a turret that spins.
Yeah, I'll shut up. Never gonna live that down.
Sorry, did I say that out loud?
So yeah, great game. It's good to keep playing Bolt Action. We're slowly getting less and less rules errors as we go, and playing the games cleaner, which is always good. I don't know. Just looking at my bloody Vortex mixer wasn't working, but I have got it working. So yeah, as I say, great game. I brought my Chiha on totally the opposite table edge just to try and stay out the way of his Panzer IV, because his Panzer IV was just something I couldn't do anything about. I think I needed to like get a lucky shot from above with a howitzer shot to even have a chance of penetrating the armor. It's an insane thing to have to deal with. But as Jerry is often wont to say, bolt action probably plays better without tanks. And who can argue with that? Which brings us to this week. And this week I played Kings of War. So we've got orcs with some goblin allies against...
It was a very Mantic themed week this week.
Yeah, it was, because you did Armada. I've got a little pic of your table coming up. This was V. V is one of the... Well, V is pretty much the only guy who does these rank and flank fantasy-style games. Me and him have played 8th edition fantasy battles from GW quite a bit. And he wanted to try Kings of War because I'd sort of like recommended it and talked about it as a system. And we played 1,500 points, as I say, orcs with some goblin allies, and then his are the lizard men, whatever they're called in Kings of War. I don't know.
Forces of nature, isn't it? Possibly.
Bearing in mind, he's never played. I mean, he is fantasy cognizant, and he has played this type of game before. But bearing in mind, he'd never played Kings of War before. We were all done by 9:30, something like that, maybe even a little bit earlier. So it was basically 2 and a bit hours to play a full game, basically. We were just under, I suppose 2,000 points is technically a full game. But it just goes to show how approachable and clean the Kings of War system is. And it was a great game. It was close right up until the end. I made some deployment errors, which V capitalised on. He got a bit of luck on as you're looking at the table flank nearest the camera in this shot. He managed to hold the entire flank with just one group of 8 or 10 Saurus warriors, just a regiment of Saurus warriors, which worked really well for him. But in the end, I did manage to prevail because it was a King of the Hill scenario. Basically, we had to have, at the end of turn 6, we had to have more unit strength on that hill in the centre of the table that you see there in this shot. And I just managed to win it in the last couple of turns. Turn 5 was really the turning point for me. But absolutely loved it. I love Kings of War. Do you know, unlike some game systems, Kings of War, I can go away and not play it for months, and I come back in, and it's so easy to play a good, clean game, even from a standing start. I really can't. It's just a great game. It's a great system. And this is a quick shot of your Armada table, mate.
So yeah, we played a 3-way. So this was me, Trevor, and Ricky. We played a 3-way at 260 odd points, I want to say, because that was the maximum Trevor could bring. So the scenario was we had a survivor ship that had survived a previous battle. If it got to the end of the scenario alive, it scored 5 VP for us. If it's large or medium and you sink your enemy ships, you score 3 VP. If you sink a medium or smaller, it's worth 1 VP. Kick the shit out of one another. Off ye go. At the point, Paul took this picture. Trevor's Banshee. It's a what's it called? Twilight Kin.
That's it.
Twilight Kin boat decided it was going to have a fight with 2 dreadnoughts, and it did come off worse. She soon sank at the bottom of the ocean.
One dreadnought's bad enough, but to get caught between 2, it's like, no, your day's going south at that point.
Yeah. So it was a fun little game. Basically, after we kicked 7 bells of shit out of each other in the centre, because I sunk Trevor. I then started to kick the shit out of Ricky and Ricky's Dreadnought, and it then took me 5.5 turns to do a significant amount of damage to the Dreadnought. Meanwhile, his entire fleet is pounding the broadside of my Dreadnought, barely making a dent and or scratch. They're a bit broken. I don't particularly like them.
Yes, we have discussed this at length on stream. Jerry called us out and said that we were wrong, but I don't know. It must be just the way we play the game. But we do find that these dwarf dreadnoughts are fucking inordinately strong in this game. Inordinately strong. In answer to your
in general,
in answer to your question, Orinoco, it never even occurred to me to actually go down in response to preparatory bombardment, which goes to show this is why we need to play more bolt action, because we're still not getting the rules right. I'm assuming.
Well, you were going down at several other opportunities.
Yeah, but it never occurred to me you could do it in response to the preparatory bombardments. But now Orinoco said that, it makes such a lot of sense. So I'm assuming all that means is that your units basically retain their down, or you're pulling your dice for the first turn. So you will have a down order, and you don't get to do anything else in turn one. Which I am definitely going to be doing in future, because getting 2 pin markers on all of my regular troops is a fucking major pain in the ass that early in the game. If you keep saying 3-way, Crispin is sure to appear. Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. Yeah.
To be fair, there is the Kingdoms of Men cards.
Yeah, I mean, you can pretty much sub them for whatever you like, Shakos. I must confess, I'm interested to go the other way, and having played and enjoyed Armada, and as I'm getting more and more into my historicals, I'm interested to maybe explore Black Seas some more, because I think the big difference is in movement, isn't it? That I think there's like more rules for formation, movement, and that sort of thing.
Again, from an Armada point of view, we don't play. Oh, that was the other thing we played with in our game, was the really swingy winds. So there's a ruling in Seas of Dread that changes the wind table when you roll at the end of the turn. Instead, now it stays stationary on a 6 to 8. But obviously, because we don't play with the full wind rules, it doesn't really affect the battle too much.
Right. Okay. So what it makes the wind way more likely to change.
Yeah. It moves 2 steps on a 1 or a 12. It moves 1 step from 2 through to 5 or 6.
Okay.
And then it's stable for 3 in the middle, and then it goes the other way for a step, or the other way 2 steps. But the reason I quite like it is because we don't play with the full wind rules, because we find them a bit bullshit and egregious that you can't go fast. It just changes up your activation order.
Yes, yeah. Because I must confess, we did find that playing it early on, that the wind not changing a lot was a thing, wasn't it? It tended to be fairly static in the games. Yeah. Do you not like? I mean, you've played more Armada than me. That obviously the difference with the full wind rules is that it changes your maximum speed depending on your facing, isn't it?
Yeah. So if the wind is coming from directly behind you in your back 45, you can go all the way up to flat out. Right. Bear in mind, I play dwarves.
I was going to say, aren't
have
you?
Engines,
yeah.
And therefore should not be affected by wind. It pisses me off that they are.
Oh, right. So your engine rules don't get around that?
No.
Oh, that seems a bit weird.
They just allow me to have a turn at the beginning so that I don't hit land, kind of thing.
Oh, right, that's how your engines work, is it? They don't actually modify your speed, they're more of a manoeuvrability thing?
Yes, they're more of a manoeuvrability
thing.
It seems. Because I can, at any one point before I start a movement, can make a turn, and it's once per activation kind of thing. So if I move 3 steps, I can move one of my movements, do my turn full to red, say to starboard. Then before I do my second move step, I can do another turn full to red, do my second move step and turn at the end.
Yeah.
And then do my third move step of move then turn, so I can actually crank stuff around on really tight corners.
Okay.
I find playing dwarves. They're slow, they're dependable. The fastest boat in the fleet is movement 5. But they are really maneuverable. Just think of the doors as the Ever Given. Too much wind and your
big slabs and you crash into the sides. Yeah. I think the thing with the dwarves is the survivability is fucking obscene on them. They're so... And again...
I mean, the rune axes have 75 hull points. That's on a medium battleship. It's got 75 hull. The fucking dreadnought's got 112 and reduces any incoming damage by 2 to a minimum of 1.
Yeah.
It's fucking insane.
And to be fair, I think the other thing we discussed this sort of feeds into what we've discussed on earlier weeks as well. Scenarios have a big impact on this, because if you suddenly get some random scenario and it's all kill points based and your opponent's the dwarves, fucking good luck scoring anything there. That's going to be an uphill fucking slog sinking or destroying anything. Innit?
Yeah.
So, news.
But no,
news o'clock.
They're not bad. They're not bad little boats. News. Yeah, let's do the news.
They are very nice little models, to be fair, though. Or, I don't know. Is there any Armada stuff that you don't like? Go on.
Twilightkin.
So Twilightkin, you're not mad keen on the aesthetic of?
Yeah, Trident Realms of Neritica, yes, riding animals is really cool, but it just, particularly when their Kraken models and stuff are the same, or because they've got big Leviathan whales that are very close to the what's it called?
Actually, do you know what? If there's a faction I'm not sure on the aesthetic of, it's them. I'm not sure whether I like them or not.
The elves are nice. The elves are speedy boys. The elves run catamarans.
I like their models. I've never played them or played against them.
Salamanders are... Well, again, if you want a second fleet, mate.
I probably will do at some point.
Salamanders are pretty baller.
Yeah, I love the aesthetic of their ships, obviously, which is why I got them.
Basilians are another one I'm on the fence about.
They're a bit meh. Yeah, I'll give you that.
A bit meh. I really like the look of the Abyssal Dwarf stuff.
I love I do like the ship design of the Empire of Dust stuff.
Yes.
They're really nice looking ships for me. So let's go.
Trident Realms are getting new plastics this year. I assume you mean for Kings.
Yes, they are. Because that's all.
I've just had a thought.
You go steady now.
Where the fuck is the Ratkin fleet?
Ooh, that's a good shout. That is a good shout. I don't think they have one, do they?
And the Goblin fleet.
No, that's true. They don't have one either. Or the Giants.
Giants will be a bit difficult.
To be fair, though, again, right, we called this. Sometimes you don't need to explore every nook and cranny of design space. You just explore the design space that you've got good ideas for. I do like the idea of a Ratkin fleet. I think goblins might be a bit redundant. And then I think the ogres are a bit redundant, probably. But I do like the idea of ratkin, and I'm not quite sure what they do with it. Do you know what? That might be a cool thing. So, like, maybe the ratkin have a rule where they can, like, when you sink their ships, they put out little lifeboat, like small mini boats. And then they can board you and take over your ships or some cool shit. That would be a smart little mechanic, and it would do the rats deserting the sinking ship thing a treat, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Right.
That's a really cool idea.
Seeing as we went on a random tangent.
Yeah. Well, not really. It was all to do with your Armada game, wasn't it?
I do like Armada. It is a very good game. The system is very good. And I have said to Ricky this year for doing our second fleets, doing a campaign and printing and playing our second fleets.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what the yeah, I'll be interested to see what. Do you have campaign rules in your supplements or?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how that goes, because wasn't Ricky going to do like freebooters or the piratey guys?
Ricky's done pirates now.
Yeah.
I think Ricky's going to do a solo faction, and I need to sit down with Ricky and see how broken we can get a pirate list.
So is his dwarf stuff actually as part of a pirate list?
Yes.
Okay, got you.
Again, it makes completely and utterly thematical sense of if you fucking manage to capture a dreadnought, don't let it go and don't sink it, because it's fucking worth its weight in gold.
Yeah. And I suppose if there's a ship that you want to capture on the high seas, it'll be that one.
Yep.
So yeah, for first piece of news today is the Skaven were good in Man of War, especially one-shot suicide ships. That's another good idea.
Yeah,
have like fire ships, just drive into the enemy ships. And burn them down. Oh, bloody hell, Armada's already small enough, Ewok, without shrinking the scale. So yeah, Peachy is obviously his channel is due tomorrow. In fact, apparently he's got a rush of videos. I think 3 videos this weekend that are sort of his channel launch. There is a little trailer gone up on YouTube this week. So just keep your eyes peeled, guys, because we're going to see. I'm interested to see how Peachy's channel pans out.
Spam. God damn you! She's organised my paints and now they're all in different places.
Oh God! Right. So yeah. I'm really keen to see how Peachy's channel shapes up. Obviously, it didn't work with him and the guys at the painting phase. And I think when we see how his channel evolves, that'll tell us exactly what was wrong with that and why it didn't work as like a relationship for him.
Thing, yeah.
This is something that you sent me initially, but I'm really interested in. Everybody here knows that I'm a massive Cthulhu fan. So P-Work Games, or P-Work Wargames, I've got this Altar of the Dead Gods game, which is a Lovecraftian themed skirmish game with a sort of dark fantasy setting. I didn't realise it was actually out, but apparently it is. So the rulebook is like €20, just under. Now I haven't looked to see if there's any playthroughs or videos on how to play this.
I see things and go, Paul would like that, and send it to him, because I don't like spending my own money. I like spending other people's.
So yeah,
that reminds me.
Does anybody
need to go back fucking Warpath, because how many hours are left on that fucker now?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. I've already got my pledge in. It was
with me, guys.
Yeah, you need to crack on, mate, because I think that's finishing any time.
Epic Warpath, here we go.
Live on stream, David spends money.
I've got 17 hours. I don't need to spend it live on stream.
Oh, okay, that's fine. You're cutting it a bit close though, boy.
Dude, I've backed stuff with minutes left to spare before. Treat it like eBay.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
No, I know, it doesn't get any cheaper.
Oh, I'm going to put a snipe pledge in for £1 and see if I can get the God pledge. No, it doesn't work. Spam and egg. They are in boxes as per brand. Excuse me. What a novel idea. Laughing face. That's rude. So, yeah. Has anybody seen this game, played this game, know anything about this game? Is it any good? It seems a cheap buy-in. I'm assuming it's...
Is it worth it?
I'm assuming it's that horrible phrase, miniature agnostic. But essentially, you can play with what you like. So yeah, I'm just going to throw it out here for people to look at. And if you have played this game and you're watching later on YouTube, get in the comments and tell me actually whether it's any good.
Is he missing out?
Yeah, because I probably will do a new game this year. Obviously, I'm sort of committed now to Epic Warpath, but I don't think that Kickstarter's delivering this year, is it?
That doesn't deliver till next March, so technically you've got to get out of jail free.
So that one doesn't count, but so that means I can still get another one. Now, talking about Cthulhu, we can never have too much Cthulhu. Those son of a guns at Crooked Dice are at it again. So they've got another Kickstarter for 7TV. Now, this one isn't a game supplement like their previous 80s one. It's just an adventure pack. So it's sort of like a campaign, a themed campaign. And it's based around the Mountains of Madness Cthulhu story, by the looks of it. So you've got some sort of Antarctic Cthulhu.
That sounds cool as fuck, though.
I'll be honest, I've not played any of these 7TV campaign boxes, but the Dracula one that they did, I've seen such good things about. And I think a couple of guys did some killer projects on. No, I've backed it on Kickstarter, but the print's not been released yet. Cheese me. Some guys on OTT have done some killer projects with the 7TV. I can think of at least one where somebody does, I think, a playthrough of all the scenarios. But I mean, look at this. Look at the you've got scenario episode maps with you can almost feel the bloody theme screaming, out at you from this. It just looks so damn cool. And then in episode 5, we've got this this massive submarine moored in this icy cavern. It just looks so cool. I haven't decided whether I'm going to back this feature pack yet, but I am so tempted. I mean, it's not a huge amount of money for the core pledge. It's 23 quid for the feature pack. The only thing I might want on top of that is the submarine, because I think you can get resin prints of it. I'm not too interested in buying the full range of miniatures because I like to just pick them up as and when I can. And obviously I can, Nazis, I can sub in some of the stuff that I already own. And these I guess the Antarctic Adventurer models are fairly specific, but they are damn cool. So yeah, awesome thing on Kickstarter at the minute. This one was one you flagged, mate, wasn't it? Western Rush 3.
Yeah, so I had a bit of a doom scroll last night on the old Kickstarter, and this came up. So
this is a ones and zeros campaign.
Yeah, it's 3D printed Wild West scenery. Now, obviously, I have got some Wild West Exodus scenery and bits and pieces, but in for a penny, in for a pound. Let's have some extra stuff that's more generic, and we can then stick it with some of the other games that we can play.
Well, and I think the pledge, the pledge level was what drew you to it. It's like 18
quid. 18 quid for over, I think there's about 20 models. Yeah, I don't mind if I'm paying a quid for each of those pretty little houses and train pieces. Do you know what I mean?
It looks like you could even go into the pledge manager and pick up the 1 and 2 one as well.
Yeah.
Because look, there's like animal stockyard pens and all sorts of other stuff from older ones by the looks of it. Western Rush 1, 2 and 3. So
bit of a choice to make there.
That one seems insane value, mate. That does seem insane value. These barns look amazing for like Mythos style games as well.
Again, this is what I'm thinking. Just a generic Wild West town.
You could use this as warehousing in Mythos, couldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. Pretty cool.
Some of this would look quite good as urban Malifaux terrain as well. It's the right sort of time feel about it.
Yeah.
It's a really cool thing.
I think there's like 20 days left to back on it or something stupid. It's not ends in 5 minutes, guy, is it?
No. There's some nice models there. Thing is, well, I tell you what else I like. I don't think these will be very quick to put on the table. I think these will be quick to put on the table. They've got just the right.
A lot of detail on them, but the detail that they have on them is the detail that you want and need from your miniatures.
Again, he's tried to sell more of it with textures rather than details. Do you know what I mean? I mean, those weathercocks, those weather vanes might be a bit annoying. I can't imagine them not being snapped within 25 seconds.
But the other thing is, because this is FDM, it doesn't suffer from the same issues as like the TT combat shit and even the War Cradle shit of the building isn't very textured.
Some of these buildings are fucking huge as well. That's 60 centimeters long, that barn. That's insane.
Jesus.
That's a big old print. So yeah, that's quite a nice little Kickstarter for those of you who are into the digital stuff. Do you know what, Darren? The only 7TV I have played is at cons. If it's one of them sort of game systems, if somebody's running a demonstration game or a participation game, God, they're fun because they're always story driven. They're just so much fun. And as I say, I bought because they recently did the Super Rulebook on Kickstarter. They've gone away from doing the themed box sets. And now they've just done
here's everything together.
A core rulebook, if you like, and then they're going to stack on top of that genre guides. So it's one of those games. It's now easier to get into 7TV because you literally just buy the books, and then if you want to play 1920s gangsters, you buy those models, print those buildings, build those tables. If you want to do an A-Team rip-off or fucking James Bond or whatever, you just buy those models, build those tables. As I say, they've got the marketing of it now so that it's so accessible. Whereas before it was like, oh, do a commit to buying the big fantasy box, do a commit buying the post-apocalyptic box. Do you know what I mean? It's so much easier now.
Sort of all core and together, yeah.
Ewok, I hope to God you're not trolling us. That sounds amazing. Ewok, last 7TV I played was the young one supported by Oompa Loompas versus Dad's Army. Yeah, whatever. That does sound absolutely crackpot. What else have we got here?
How much drugs did you take before playing that game, Ewok?
Well,
there's one more Kickstarter that I wanted to talk about.
Now, this one threw me for a complete curve. So again, this one's yours, Severna Spaceport. Now, this is Kathy Millett, for fuck's sake. For those who don't know, Kathy Millett is like I first came across her when she was the judge on a crappy TV show where they were judging model railway builds. And I think her background is in scale modelling and railway stuff.
Yes, it is. She's done a few books and bits and pieces on the matter.
But apparently...
But she also is a bit of a war gamer, and she also knows how to use the internet and CAD software.
So are these actually designed by her, or has she just sort of commissioned them?
Yes! They're designed by her, built by her, painted by her.
Well, there you go. Who the fuck knew that Kathy Millett was going to be the next mover and shaker in tabletop wargaming? Just goes to show, I guess. I tell you what, I do like these hoses.
Yeah, the refueling hoses.
Yeah, because they're something that you don't often see as a terrain piece, but they're really effective and really...
Yeah, they sell what you're doing and where you are.
And there'd be a complete ball bag to actually sculpt and make from scratch.
Yeah.
Some of the other stuff's
I quite like the control towers in this.
The control tower.
The control tower looks really nice.
Where am I? What, this thing there? Space traffic control. Thing. Actually, I'll give you that. That is pretty cool. I will give you that.
It's pretty unique.
Yeah. I like the massive radar dish things as well, because again, something that's as fiddly as fuck to actually make a parabolic dish. There's some nice bits in this. What's the pledge level? How much cash are we having to drop on? Oh, 50 quid. Okay.
But
not cheap. Not cheap. I mean, how many STLs are you getting for 50 odd notes, or just under 50 notes?
A few.
Spacecrafts, they're quite cool.
There's a little space taxi as well.
They do seem very replete. TIE Fighter ripoff. They do seem very... Oh, she's done previous Kickstarters.
Yeah, she has. This isn't her first rodeo, boy.
Yeah, some of it's a bit... I tell you what, I like those taxi ranks for an infinity table. Do like them a lot.
Yeah. Again, it's just cool little things. I mean, again, the Corvix Lava Moon that she's done previously is what's it called? Very the battle scene in fucking Star Wars. You know what I'm on about, where Anakin's screaming that he's got the high ground.
Oh yeah. I know briefly what you mean. I'm not super familiar with those movies. There's some nice things like circular things in square frames. There's some interesting ideas, cylinders inside frames. There's some interesting ideas here as well in terms of design.
It's unique stuff.
I can't see any large banner heading that says XSTLs for 47 quid, so I must have missed it. If you guys spotted it, well done. But yeah, it looks okay. Like I say, definitely not one you're going to do as an impulse at 47 quid. Yeah, I've checked a few of her YouTube channels out. She does some lovely diorama pieces, Orinoco. I'll give her that. She's very good modeler. Very good modeler.
And she did all the painting for the stuff that's in this Kickstarter. She did. And she does a guide on how to paint it and how to wash it and everything and how to hide your layer lines and all sorts.
That's really cool. So she's done all that on her YouTube channel. Right. Okay. What? More news. We're still not finished, guys. Underworld.
Fucking hell! We've gone from a news drought to a news flood.
I know. It's just the way things go, I guess. So Underworlds, mate. Yeah. Again, you spotted this first.
How do we feel about this? How do we feel? I'm a bit pissed because they're re-releasing old shit rather than new warbands, and they're updating the cards for them to make them better. So basically, what they're doing here is admitting, yes, those miniatures were beautiful, and yes, we've still got the molds for them, and you can still have them, and we'll release them as a 4-pack, but they were really underpowered versus Death Gorge. So here's 2 new rival decks to make them work properly. Or 4 new rival decks to make them work properly.
Without getting too much into the weeds, though, Underworlds is one of those games where it's advancing at a rate of knots. It's season-based, it's meta-based. Old stuff is going to become obsolete because everything's moving forward all the time. I quite like what they're doing. I'm annoyed that they've done it in this format because I have 2 of these 4 factions. I would love the goblins, and I would love the goblins and the Moglogs models, but I've already got Briar Queen and I've already got the Skaven. What I don't understand, I just wish that Games Workshop would market their products in a way that was more consumer friendly. So,
again, why not release these cards separate for people that had them the first time around?
Correct.
Just fucking saying.
That's exactly. Why don't you park? I don't know what this kit is going to retail at. It's going to be an obscene amount of money, right?
But, it's going to be like 60 to 80 quid.
Right. So let's say it's honest. 80 quid.
Let's be honest, because each faction is around the 25 mark.
Okay, so let's
say they're doing you a discount because you got four factions together. It's gonna be about 80 quid.
Yeah, so let's say that's for a faction and a deck. You could split that out and make them 20 quid boxes, right? But what about
pairings, right?
Well, just sell them singly. Just because, again, how many... This game is so old now. There is an established player base that already own those miniatures. They don't want a second set of miniatures. Why would they want to buy an 80 quid box, flip half of it on eBay? But then again, like me, I have the miniatures for the Briar Queen. I would love an updated set of cards that weren't as janky and massively underpowered versus the new shit. So why don't you just put the fucking cards into... Sell me the cards for 15 quid, the models for 15 quid, or whatever. And even if I've got to spend more than if I had to spend an 80 quid box... I can still buy the bits I want. I don't mind if it's a little bit more expensive per bit if I can just buy what I want. I hate the way that they market these things in these like fucking, bargain bucket boxes, which is not a bargain because I've already got half of it. Do you know what I mean? Hello, yeah. Toros. Good evening, sir. Ewok's just back GCPS. Well done, mate. I don't know, why? Fucking why? And
again, right, hear me out. Who decided, right, here, what sets got the love?
Again, cheese me there. I wanted the models, but never wanted the cards. Well, here's the thing. 15 quid, buy the models. Just the models.
Again.
The models
Here's
you want.
Here's a radical idea. Make the cards such that they're more universal.
Well, yeah, you're talking about designing the game a different way. I mean, to be honest, I saw somebody on YouTube, now I don't know if this is a filthy rumour or it's true, haven't they added a play mode to Underworlds where you could play without the cards?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm sure I saw that. That's very true, Ewok. GW are a bunch of brunts. I'm sure I've seen somebody saying on the internet that there's a play mode with this where you can basically just ditch the cards and play it literally as like Warcry, where it's just minis with stats against minis with stats. Which is fine, whatever. I don't think they need another board game with minis with stats versus minis with stats. They do that. Yeah, go high command, and you've only got to pick them 4. I know it's a tough decision, Toros, which faction to go for in the old.
Well, you're going plague, aren't
well,
you?
I was just about to say, just in case Toros isn't aware, you do not select your faction yet, Toros. You select your factions in the pledge. So you don't need to actually make any decisions at the moment. You can literally just back it and think, fuck it. And then make your mind up later if you want to go down that route. But yeah, like David says, I'm probably going to do Plague because I won't do Plague in Firefight. I'm not mad keen on painting a ton of Horde models for that. I'm not that in love with the Plague models. They're fine. I'd happily do Plague for like Dead Zone, where I've just got to pay 15
handful.
Do you know what I mean? But to paint an entire Plague army, can't see that I'm ever going to do that at 28 mil.
So instead, you're now going to do it at 10 mil.
Yeah, but it's a different thing, isn't it? You can just smash it out and not worry about it. Yeah. So we're running out of time. Let's quickly. Again, this is another one that David threw at me. Dungeon X looks like an interesting idea. So effectively, what you've got is like a hybrid dungeon terrain system.
Print and play at home. So it's 3D printed STL columns in a variety of finishes, and then you print on cardstock your walls. Build your dungeon how you like.
I mean, there's already
seems cool. Buy-in seems all right for 30 quid.
Is that all it is for the digital assets?
Yeah.
I suppose I was just about to say, in a crowded market, I'm not sure what this has to offer, but that is what it's having to offer, isn't it? That is an insanely cheap buy-in for one of these modular dungeon systems. Even the STL print ones, where it's just pure plastic or resin.
You've been called out, sir, by my other half.
What?
You need salting.
Why?
Because apparently you're a salty bucket.
Oh, yeah, because of my rant about Underworlds. That's fair. I'll let you have that. Yeah, salt's on me tonight. Seasoned appropriately. But it just pisses me off. Because, again...
Do people still have paper printers? I do, Shakos. Long story. Tried to order some toner. Still hasn't been delivered from Amazon because Royal Mail are a bunch of twats, but we'll gloss over that.
To be fair, though, even if you've got I've got a relatively good full colour Brother laser at home, but even on the highest settings, mine's not going to produce these print qualities. I'm not sure what sort of colour printer you are using for this, but the colour intensity on this looks like photo quality stuff. And I've not seen many full colour lasers produce this sort of quality. Not home use ones. Maybe you guys know different, but I'd be a little bit skeptical, to be honest, that it's as easy as it looks. I mean, again, it's fine. It is what it is, and it's cheap. But
again, the reason I was looking at this is I have Torch and Shield.
Yeah, which
so rather than having a flat dungeon layout, I can print some of these and do like half wall sets for the cinematic shit when I want to do like some Let's Plays, etc.
Yeah.
So, well, I've base coated everything and I've washed it, and I'm now waiting for the wash to dry.
Right. Okay. We're nearly done with the news. We're Gaslands, Planet Smasher Games, Mike Hutchinson, who've designed Gaslands and Hobgoblin and Billion Suns, put this video up just over a week ago. And basically he was running a community survey asking where players and people who are fans of Gaslands, where they wanted it to go, what they sort of like, what's the word?
Did what they enjoyed?
Yeah, what community resources they were using.
Again, was it what groups are you in on Facebook? Do you use regularly? Why did you go into Gaslands here, for example? So was it the price point, the fact that it's a rule book and some Hot Wheels miniatures? Was it the post-apocalyptic setting? Was it the fact that you can adjust and build and tweak shit when you're playing your games? Are you just playing your games building cars? Or are you doing full sponsor lists, etc., and that kind of thing? So yeah, it was quite in depth. I can't believe how short he ran this for.
I was going to say, it can only have been up for a couple of days. Because
I was fully expecting it to be running for a couple of weeks, maybe a month.
The only thing I can think of was that
I saw it linked on one of the Gaslands groups that it was on. And I thought, I'll click on that. And then I didn't click on it until the day after, and it had closed at that point. And I'm like, oh.
To be fair, and to give it context, he does say in the video that he is in active discussions with Osprey on what is going to be his next Gaslands project. And the only thing I can infer from that, mate, is that essentially Osprey had a time clock on him and said, you just need to tell us, mate, what are we doing now? You know, so that's probably why it ran for a really short time, and he just wanted to get the ideas in and then give Osprey what they wanted. I mean, I'll be honest, obviously the survey's closed, so I didn't put this on the news because of the survey. I put this on the news because obviously it's great to see that Mike is now coming back to Gaslands and doing something with it.
Mike's done better than coming back to Gaslands and doing something with it. For those in the know who've watched this video, Mike's quit his day job.
Yes.
Mike is now just focusing solely on PSG and the content he can produce.
Now, he is quite, not downbeat, but he is quite reticent in the video. He's like, we'll see how long it lasts. I think he's enjoying the opportunity to go full-time as a game designer.
He's got bills to pay.
Yeah. But do you know what? All the best. I hope it works out for him. I think the only game system of his that I've not really clicked with was Hobgoblin. But even then, I could see what he was trying to do, and I didn't think the idea was necessarily bad. I just didn't think it was a game for me. Yeah, I just didn't think it was a game for me. So yeah, that's that. As I say, pop along and have a look at the video. If nothing else, it'll introduce you to Mike and give you an idea of his personality, and you can find out where he's at and what he's up to. So that's it for the news. We are through it.
10 minutes late.
I
have just had a thought as well. If we'd have actually been more prepared last week and told people that we were moving and shaking
2 weeks ago,
etc., we're catching up on 2 weeks worth of news here.
Yes, that is true.
Gaming
that
and
is
everything
true.
else. So sorry, guys. We'll try not to do it again anytime soon.
Just a reminder, obviously we mentioned it at the beginning. If anybody wants to submit any pictures for the painting event or painting competition this month, the theme is heavy metal. There will be a Gmail address I think it's a Gmail address in the video description, or it might be a Hotmail address. I don't know. I can't remember. I set these things up and I fucking forget. So you can send them there, or you can, if you're on the Tabletop Discord server, you can direct message me there with images, and we'll stick them into the smorgasbord of shots that we'll have for next week's stream.
Let's paint a crow.
Ewok says, really never vibed with the sponsor system, felt at odds with the post-apocalyptic setting. I'll be honest, Ewok, Gaslands is one of them sort of games. Yeah, I got your pictures, Darren. Thank you. Shakos, thank you. If only everything was anything was tightly scripted here, mate. Come on, get a fucking grip. What was I going to say? Do you know what? Gaslands Ewok is one of them games where I'm not playing it for the lore. I mean, I know there is a story and these people are trying to compete to get off planet or
tickets,
fucking whatever. Yeah, it doesn't matter. The whole the sponsors and the themes and the way that it makes groups of cars unique, I think is really clever. I don't necessarily think that they're all equally good. I think some of the sponsors...
There are power builds looking at you, Idris and Miyazaki.
I mean, some of them, I just think that, you know, even if you were to say, well, I'm going to optimize, I'm going to build so that I can maximize my sponsor abilities and try and get those, you know, audience votes and stuff like that, I still think some of them are playing the game on fucking hard mode. But I you know, it is a good game and it's got some great theme. Yeah, exactly, Darren. I don't really think too much about the story. It's like, well, what does all this shit do? It just goes crazy.
It's a beer and pretzels game.
Yeah. I don't think it's, you know. It's
Question: what colour beaks do ravens have, and what colour feet do ravens have? Oh, for fuck's sake!
All of the
it's going to be a very black model.
Is it Corvidae? All the Corvidae family of birds are black beaks, I think.
Yes, it is Corvidae.
And the only ones that don't have entirely black plumage are the jay families.
Magpies.
Yeah, or various other jay species if you're outside the UK. So yeah, it's pretty much a black fest, mate. What I would suggest you do...
They are the gothic birds.
Yeah. What I suggest you do is crack out all of your dark greys and basically try and use anything but black so that you get some model definition, because you're going to struggle without it.
What I've just done is just done black with a grey dry brush because she's only yay big, and we're calling her done. We're going to
Shakos,
paint her armor.
It will not surprise you to learn that I am Warboss D on on Tabletop Discord, buddy, as you see on the screen in front of you. So if you want to friend me or message me, yeah, that's a good shout. Dark blues, really dark blues. Again, to be fair, one of the really good tricks with black is just paint it black and then dry brush it with dark colours of any shade. Dark greens, really dark, intense greens can work. Really dark, intense blues, purples can work. Anything to add some colour tonality to black can help with colour separation on models. I've used all sorts of, having painted a fuck ton of Raven Guard, I've used all sorts of cheats and shit to try and get colour tone in. Yeah, I to be honest with you, mate, I try and be consistent because I just don't remember my own fucking username if I don't. Shall we get on to our main topic of the clock? Everybody Everybody will be glad to know that there is now going to be questions will be asked, because I have prepared a slideshow, so I do expect people to be taking notes.
Are we issuing an exam on this afterwards?
Yeah, there will be a 30-question multiple choice exam, which I will be setting at the end of tonight's stream. Right, mate. Terrain guidelines from games. Now, let's get on to the main topic.
Shall we start with where this came about?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Let's tell the people where this came from and why we sort of landed on it as a topic. Over to you.
So, we've been playing some games recently, and I think the other week we sat and we mentioned all about being bitten by the scenario. And I was just having a flick through the Mantic companion app for those that are subbed, etc. There is obviously some guidelines for some of their games that layout, terrain layouts, Firefight being a prime example, and Dead Zone are some really good examples of tables and how to do the layout. But then Mantic also have dropped the ball massively because Armada, they basically go, well, here's your deployments, get the fuck on with it. It's very chalk and cheese. And me and Paul sat there, I think, over a burger at McDonald's, and we're like, actually, more game designers need to put some time and effort and some thought into table layouts, deployment scenarios, listing, and giving people ideas, etc. Obviously, me and Paul are experienced wargamers. We can set up a table that looks pretty darn beautiful and plays pretty fucking well.
Well, hang on a minute.
We don't get it wrong. We don't get it right every time.
No, I was going to say that. I was just about to, if I can chime in, I think one of the reasons that this gets overlooked. Right. You see, you guys are going to really annoy me now because you're going to come up with loads of really cool examples, but that's why we have you here, because you're awesome. I think there's two parts to this. If you're a big company and you've got a multi-person design team on your game, you should be doing this shit. Okay? Your rule book should have half a page on terrain that makes your game sing. And I don't just mean what sort of terrain, I mean how much, where to put it, traps to avoid. You should be doing it. I think what happens with a lot of the independent guys is that, like David said, they're the same as us. They've been playing war games for 20 plus years. They just do it all by instinct and don't think about it, which is fair enough when you're a one-man band who's trying to keep all them plates spinning. But I think what I want to come from tonight is, if anybody is in this sector and is watching this video, this is a heartfelt plea from game players to do a little bit more than you perhaps thought you needed to. And to come back to what David said, I've been playing Warhammer since 86-7, started with 3rd edition, then got into Rogue Trader. So I've been playing for 30 odd years. If I start a new game system, I will still lay shit tables out until I've worked it out. They might look great, but I can pretty much guarantee if they play great, it's a fluke. Because
again, we only have to look at the first time we played Armada, we fell into the trap of putting the islands too close to the edge of the board.
Yeah.
And yes, it looked really pretty, and yes, it was really good, but the gameplay behind those islands was a fucking nightmare because we kept driving off the board because we couldn't get round the islands.
At some point, I'm going to slide out and go upstairs and get... Or, I tell you what, to save me the job of getting the Trench Offensive rulebook and saying what your terrain stuff is, Paul, you shout yourself out, mate. If you can type in a comment that... Or you could even put it in the video. What is your little paragraph, or what are your things on terrain in Trench Offensive in the rulebook? Because I didn't... Do you know what? There's two I missed. David's already meant Firefight I didn't do, and Trench Offensive I didn't do. I did all of these other games because I've got so many fucking rulebooks. I just sort of got fatigued after going through all of the rulebooks and trying to find them. But yeah, there's going to be loads I've missed. Toros says most historical games, when you're not playing an actual battle, usually have a terrain generation system. And to be fair, Toros, talking about the historical games, one way you can do it is to put your terrain in your scenario. If you give a specific map for your scenario that says open area here, crowded area here, blah, 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 and you literally put it all on there, then you don't really need guidelines in the general game. If it's supposed to be scenario based, like a historical, well, it's like the topography and the the battle you're fighting is this. It was this. There was a river, 2 bridges, whatever, urban settlement. So there's no discussion. That is what you're playing, and that is a valid way of doing it. Frostgrave does this a lot. So Frostgrave, some of the missions.
I want to hard counter your Frostgrave argument here. So the scenarios like Well of Dream and Sorrow says to place a well.
Yeah, I'm not saying all. I just said they do it a lot.
In the slap bang centre of the table, similar to the Mausoleum. The Mausoleum is a building that's 6 inches by 6 inches.
But you're talking about the ones from the rulebook. So the ones from the rulebook are much more vanilla. If you look at any of the supplements, like I was reading today one from Forgotten Pacts, which is the demon one, you have an you have an altar in the center of the table. You have a clear zone around the altar. You then have guys arranged in a square around the altar forming a barrier, and it literally tells you this area must be clear. You put this and only this in this area. The rest of the table follow normal rules, but again, scenarios, Frostgrave does have that a lot. So let's move on to some of the slides we've got, because as we see examples, so
is coming out.
So Frostgrave 2nd edition doesn't have a huge amount of advice, but what I do like about Frostgrave 2nd edition is the emphasis it puts on quantity of terrain, because again, the thing is as well, I don't need to know what I need to put on my table, if it's a hedge, a fence, a building, but how much of it and where is a good idea to place it and where's a bad idea to place it, like David said with Armada. Actually, if you're putting islands or sandbars or anything on the table for Armada, where you put it is way more important often than how big it is and what it is, isn't it, mate? Because just placing a piece of terrain badly in Armada makes either it irrelevant or the scenario almost unplayable.
Yeah, you've turned it from a pleasant play experience to this is fucking egregious now.
So Frostgrave basically says that the ruins of Frostgrave are a dense labyrinth of broken buildings, collapsed walls and shattered statues and patches of ice and snow, unless you're underground, in which case it's completely different. In truth, the exact nature of the terrain isn't overly important. Open brackets, yeah, that's true for some scenarios, not others, close brackets. What is important is that there is a lot of it. The table should be crowded with terrain, leaving only a few areas or avenues for open ground and giving figures plenty of space to hide and take cover. It really should not be possible for a figure on the ground to draw line of sight to any point more than a foot or so away. So how many games of Frostgrave have we played where people are telekinesing chests from like the opposing side of the board towards them?
Well, not anymore, because telekinesis now has a 16-inch range cap.
But
I get your point.
If you build the table properly, telekinesis shouldn't be working for more than about 10 to 12 inches, because you just shouldn't be able to see anything. And this is why I think this is an example of a really well thought out paragraph, because it tells you so much. Just that comment about your line of sight should be virtually zero. If you can see the other side of the board, do it again. It's just, that is such a great piece of advice that you don't see in a lot of games.
And again, the fact that they make reference to it doesn't even have to
look at the comments. Paul's done village play. Oh my god, Paul, I'm so excited for that. Holy shit. Sorry, mate, carry on.
So again, they're saying here, terrain doesn't matter. Have big pieces, little pieces, have scatter, have snow mounds, have whatever.
Yeah.
But just throw everything in the kitchen sink at the table. And if you think it's a little too much, sit there and have a look at that foot line of sight rule.
Yeah.
Because what you think is probably too much, because you're accustomed to games that have less terrain requirements, is probably not the case here.
Yep. As I say.
Because again, for wargamers that have been involved in other games, it's a complete and utter headfuck to be playing a game where there is no standard ground to sit on and place your miniatures and everything else. The fact that everything's all over the shop and up in the air and everything else.
I'll be honest, mate. I'm going to be completely frank here. Until I reread it for doing this stream, did you realise that the restrictions on line of sight were so onerous in Frostgrave? Because I didn't until I reread it.
I knew they were bad, but not necessarily that bad.
I mean, it just goes to show you can play a game for ages. But as soon as I read it, I thought if we should be putting more on, and it would make the games better. So next we got a couple here. Another example. Here's the other extreme: burrows and badgers. As a rule, a gaming table with lots of terrain and scenery will lead to closer and more exciting games. That's it. That's the limit of pretty much the terrain advice in burrows and badgers.
Yeah, I've sworn maybe do a little better. Maybe list a bit more.
Again, I've only played a couple of games of burrows and badgers. It didn't seem particularly terrain sensitive. Seems like a fun game regardless. But again, the problem is with this sort of statement is you'll build a table based on aesthetic sense. You'll tend to put something together that looks good, and it doesn't necessarily mean it plays well. You have played far more of your game than I have. Please give me some help. Do you know what I mean? And again, it doesn't matter how much experience I've got. It's your game.
Again, I'm not a clairvoyant. This is the first time of me playing the game. Because again, if you have a bad verse play experience, and it's not just due to scenario and bad dice rolls, etc., and part of it's due to terrain, but you built the world's most beautiful table and you do that a couple more times, you're like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah.
Why am I not getting it?
Yeah. And like David's just said, that's a massive factor. If you have a negative play experience because of shit terrain, that's a lost opportunity there. Do you know what I mean? What you do not want people dropping your game and saying, "Oh, that's not really for me," because they had a bad table layout.
Again, Joseph, what the fuck are you doing? Silver Bayonet's rules description versus fucking Frostgrave.
This is another good example. Now, so I'm just gonna come out here and say this, right? I did a lot of research for this video, well, compared to what we normally do, because we're a couple of slacking bastards. But I went through the rule books for all of the games that I've got examples for here, and I studied like the tabletop setup section, the terrain rules, I pulled out what I thought was the TLDR. Obviously, there are other comments in there, and it might describe like what is rough terrain, but I wanted to get the bit that said, how do I actually put all these pieces together?
The long and the short.
And if I've done a game a disservice, and you're watching this later in YouTube, put it in the comments, the bit that I missed, page reference, please, if you can. You don't necessarily need to write the whole thing out, but if you say, Paul, you're a tosser, Burrows and Badgers has a big thing on terrain on page 48, whatever, that's fine. I would really appreciate that. And in the interest of fairness, I looked, this is the best I could see. So going back to David's point, Silver Bayonet, for those that don't know, is the same guy who did Frostgrave, Joseph McCulloch. Now look at this for contrast. As a minimum, you'll want some terrain. Really? Terrain is anything that sits on the table that the miniatures have to move around or clamber over that can potentially block on side. That's it. That's it.
From one extreme to the other.
Now, just to be devil's advocate, David, could this be because Silver Bayonet is much more ranged based? So obviously you get muskets and flintlocks and and people are maybe he's deliberately wants a different feel, but maybe he should be more explicit.
This is what I'm about to say. When you've already got Frostgrave under your belt and you've gone massively in depth and you've written 3 paragraphs on how much terrain you should have in Frostgrave, maybe state as a minimum you'll want 4 pieces of terrain, like large pieces of terrain, couple of bits of scatter, but ensure that most of the table can see across to the other side of the table with a couple of broken avenues of sight. Do you know what I mean?
I do know exactly what you mean.
And here's the opposite of Frostgrave.
And here's another thought. What if your only Joseph game is Frostgrave, and immediately you come to play this and you set it up like Frostgrave and think, well, this is shit. Why would anyone bring guns? I can't shoot anything.
I'm about to come to this. So, Star Scrappers Battle Drill. I backed it on Kickstarter, played it. I'm in the Discord play group. I saw in the rules for Star Scrappers Battle Drill, it states categorically to only have like 6 to 8 pieces of terrain on I think it's a 3x3 it plays on. And I'm sat there going, the fuck? This is a sci-fi range and movement-based game. Why? And I set the table up like I set up an infinity table.
Right,
so
okay.
No more than about 12 inches of line of sight. Lots of terrain, lots of verticality, lots of shenanigans, movement. Made for an absolutely amazing game with Ricky of Star Scrappers. Absolutely amazing. And I had a rules query. So I put it in the Discord, took some pictures of the table, put it in the Discord and explained what was going on. And I had a couple of lads come in and help me with the rules query and explain the situation.
Night cheese me.
But they also then wandered in and went, fuck me, that's a lot of terrain on your table. And I'm like, yeah. I saw in the rules it said 6 to 8 pieces and I fucking threw everything at it. Oh, it looks really good. How's it play and everything else? And it's like, it plays perfectly fine. It plays amazing. I've treated it like Infinity for these reasons and listed them, etc. And a few guys were like, "Oh, I didn't think about that." And again, some of the pieces of terrain that me and Paul put on a table are literally table decoration. They have no effect on blocking line of sight and that kind of thing. They're just there as a scene dressing. All those little crates I was painting last week, scene dressing. You don't need them to play the game, and it doesn't need to be included. But it just shook me for a minute. There's these guys here going, well, I follow what the rules said, and I've only played 6 to 8 pieces, but I actually didn't enjoy the game as much as I probably would have enjoyed that game with all that other shit on the table as well. Because you've got 2 ends of the spectrum here. You've got people like me and Paul that tart and fuck around, and then you've got people that follow the letter of the law as laid out in the rule book.
Yeah, some great comments in the chat. Orinoco said about Frostgrave is in a city, Silver Bayonet isn't. And Orinoco also says, and this is perfectly fair, Silver Bayonet scenarios do have quite a bit of terrain guidance. I mean, even the first one, which I think is set in I think it says you should build a small town or farmstead at the centre of the table. So that is true.
Shakos, when it says 6 pieces, it does explain that there should be about like at least 4x4.
Yeah, but I think Shakos's point is that you do need more than just the number, don't you, mate? You need you do need some guidance on what you mean by a piece. Darren's already preempted us. 40k will be coming to Darren. Let's go on to the next slide. So Dead Zone. Again, you should experiment for yourself to find out what suits you, spelt badly. Lots of smaller buildings often for make interesting games and a few larger ones. Now, bearing in mind it's a grid-based thing. Now, and I think the thing with Dead Zone, I think the reason that there is so little guidance in the book is because obviously they sell terrain packs. So if you put their terrain packs down, it'll be right.
And they play on the grid.
But again, it's like the terrain I don't know if anybody else feels this. If you play with Dead Zone with the terrain that comes in the 2-player starter, it's a shit game. You need 3 or 4 times that terrain to make Dead Zone good. And how would you know this from the rulebook? You wouldn't. You know, that 2-player starter set wouldn't give you a clue. You've just got to keep buying stuff and putting stuff on the table till the game gets, and then you suddenly at a point, you just go, oh, now this game's something. Gaslands is surprisingly vague. Custom scenery such as obstacles, areas of rough ground, tin shacks, barricades, ramps, oil cans, or road sections will add much to the game, but are not required. You know
what I think Mike's done there though is caveat it.
Well,
then they're not required to have a fun game of Gaslands if you're just having a race.
Do you know what
adds to the game?
Yeah, definitely. Do you know what I think you could take? I think you could take a 4x4 desert mat and 2 or 3 rocks, stick them somewhere on it to have turnaround points or things that you might smash into. Put your gates out, and I think you'd still have a good game of Gaslands with nothing else. Because I think the rule system is that strong, and the actual mechanics are so engaging that it probably could get away with it. So Gaslands, you could argue he wasn't going to waste his time doing something that wasn't needed, but you've got quite slicker building Gaslands tables now, David, haven't you? I think the way you build tables really enhances, particularly Death Race mode. Death Race can be massively enhanced by smart table design.
I never make a linear table for Gaslands. And I don't know. Have you got an example to hand or not?
No, not that's easy to pull up.
So I typically, on a 4x4 mat, start in one of the corners. I have about 10 inches to gate 1. After gate 1, I tend to try and divide the pack by putting a set of dividers or rocks or something in, and then make gate 2 be in the diagonally opposite corner of like the start grid, but in such a way that players can go either way at that point, go through it, and then get back onto gate 3, which is more towards the center of the table. Because again, it optimizes if somebody's gone for a breakaway with like a Miyazaki team or an Idris team. It optimizes the slower teams to go, right, well, they've all gone that way. If I go the other way, I'm going to get a head-on pass with them, and I might be able to do something to slow them down while I'm still plodding along doing my race. Because in a linear race, they just fuck off into the sunset, and it's like, oh, well, that was fun.
Yeah.
I've got no interaction.
Yeah. And particularly the Idris builds where it's like,
long nitro,
long
days.
Yeah, you just, in your first gear cycle, you played long, and you're like, oh yeah, that's a bit shit. So, and
I mean, again, I've built mats that don't favour a particular team or playstyle. Like you've rocked up with an Idris Nitrous list and gone, well, there's nowhere on this mat I can use a fucking long straight, you twat.
No, and to be fair, I didn't feel defeated by the. Again, it just gave me a different challenge. I had to think about what I was doing because I couldn't just do the retarded long and nitro every fucking time. I had to think about it, and that's what I mean about. If you put the guidance in there, people will get more out of your game. I think that's a brilliant example of that. Orinoco's made a shocking point. Watched a few tournament videos, and there is a density varies dramatically for Dead Zone, even in tournaments. Now, and again, that tells you everything you need to know. There should be more consistency, surely, in a tournament scene. Let's go on to the next slide. So, Warhammer Fantasy Battles 8th edition. This is pretty good. So, Games Workshop, are coming out the gate strong with this. Now, somebody would say, yeah, but these games of theirs, they've done so many fucking editions. They've had endless time to perfect it, and that is fair. That is very fair. So Warhammer Fantasy Battles 8th edition, basically, I think it's page 142 or something like that. Half of the page is terrain. Okay, it tells you the rules of how you lay it out. So players roll d6 plus 4 pieces of terrain, and then you roll with your opponent, and then you alternate placing them on the board till you're done. And then there's a big 3-column table, I think it is, and it has all of the different things that you can roll for. So you have a piece of wood 6x6, a hill, a building, whatever, and 3 sections of fencing. So even when you've got scatter pieces or smaller bits, it says, well, bring them in multiples of 3, or do this or do that. So it's a really good system. The only argument might be the d6 plus 4 is a bit random, and I'll be honest, I'm not sure I'd want to play a Warhammer game on a 6x4 with 10 large hills and woods on it. You probably wouldn't be able to fucking move. I think if they'd have had to replace the random number with, say, 2 for each 2 foot by 2 foot section of the board, that's a more robust system. But again, giving you a list where you take different terrain items and, like, say, a hill is comparable to 3 hedges or 6 fences or whatever, that's a great little guideline in and of itself. Warhammer 40k 10th edition, Darren shouted it out earlier, so I'm just going to switch to it because obviously there's no better way. And I'll be honest, this is pretty much killer, because this is the web browser. If we go one more, here we go. What do they do in the current 10th edition book? They just say, I tell you what, here's some photos. So, and then there's even like 3 or 4 lines of text under each picture to tell you what you've got to look for. So it describes lines of sight. It describes, placing things towards the center versus placing them towards the edges. It even gives you an idea for what was good for match play and what is good for narrative games, and they're not necessarily the same thing. This is probably the only thing that they could do better than this, is to have a systemized way of doing it in text as well as the pictures, because some people work better off images, some people work better off instructions that are ambiguous. You could argue that photographic interpretation, it's still a bit nebulous, but it's a strong, I mean, there's lots of them. We're not just talking 2 pictures either. There's 8 different image layouts there. I think that's a fairly strong represent, don't you, mate?
Yeah, GW doing things right for a change.
It's shocking, but it just goes to show it can happen. Yeah, that is true, Shakos. I think having terrain placed by random die rolls, and again, I've seen games where you roll a d20 and you go that many inches in the direction of the arrow from the center of the table, and like you say, you can end up with utter fucking chaos that makes no sense. I much prefer, like was in the Warhammer one, where it's alternating players choose where they place things with thought. Because at least that way, if you want to cluster 3 pieces of terrain together to make an almost no-go zone, you're doing it consciously because that's what you want to do. You're not just having that inflicted on you by the random dice rolls. Yeah. Next slide. Let's go to the next slide. No, the next slide's a biggie. So, bolt action. Bolt action has quite a lot to say, but I'm not sure it's really very useful. We would suggest that the battlefield includes at least 4 sizable terrain pieces such as buildings, thick woods or rocky escarpment large enough to block line of sight over most of the table. I suppose that's fair enough. They're saying our standard...
We don't care what it is, it's just got to be big.
And you probably want 4 of them, which I guess is 1 per table quarter, but it doesn't say that you have to place them in that way. It just says you probably want 4 on your table. In addition, we recommend you include other lower terrain features, plenty of cover for infantry, for example, hedges, dry stone walls, sparse woodland, individual trees, craters, areas of rubble, wreckage, and similar rough ground. Brilliant. Again, I think that's pretty good. The only thing that, again, a lot of these rule sets, the one thing they don't have is where to put stuff. Because it's okay to say what to put and how much to put, but even the 40k one does better than that, drawing attention to how terrain behaves differently if you stick it on the edge of a board.
Can I just go to the other end of the spectrum a minute?
Go for it.
GW Warcry.
Okay, where it's literally
drawing cards and it's placed as per the fucking card because that's all that came in the set. It's a bit not nice. And trying again, because they only have the top-down view, it's like trying to play Tetris with a hand tied behind your back. You try to work out which piece goes where, because again, they're all themed, they're all similar. Rather than, I don't know, colour them ever so slightly differently because it's a terrain setup guide and then number them accordingly so that you go, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Might have been a bit easier. Yeah. Instead of the logic puzzle of deploying the zones. Regards the layout itself, they're all right. They're not amazing. They're nothing to write home about. But I think part of that is to do with the terrain itself.
I think, though, to be fair, I know what you're saying, and the iconography and the way those cards are laid out isn't brilliant. But I tell you what, if you want to make sure the game is played the way you intended it, you can't really do better than saying, okay, this is exactly how you lay your terrain out. To the inch.
Yeah.
It's like, you know how we want you to do it like this, so just do it like this. That is a way to get a very consistent game. I think they include enough variety in the terrain and scenario cards so that it doesn't get boring, but I suppose that's the risk there. If it's really prescriptive, a lot of games end up being the same after you've played a lot of it. But I don't know, I think they've done enough, and maybe that's one of the reasons why Warcry is one of their more popular game systems. Maybe that's why people like it. Maybe because that sort of prescriptive.
Again, there's no argument on the tournament scene or anything, is it? It's
no. That's
what we drew. That's what we're playing.
Yeah, maybe that prescriptive approach makes it better for new gamers and people with less of an idea. Shakos makes a fair point about bolt action, which says that there are a lot of photos in the rulebook to give you ideas. And you know what? That is true with a lot of these games. Obviously, all of these rulebooks pretty much contain some sort of photography. Some of it's very close in and obviously is more miniature focused, but they do have action shots and they represent, they do photograph table action. So there is stuff that can be inferred from there. But again, you don't want to be sort of absorbing what is essentially crucial information for gameplay by accidental osmosis and just familiarization by rereading the rulebook for the 10th time and checking out the pretty pictures.
Because again, once you've got the rules dialed down, I don't know how you find it, but the rulebook stays closed 90% of the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Once the table's set up and you're playing and you're familiar with the rules, you don't then go back through it, wander through it and go, oh, well, actually, I should have laid it out like that. Do you know what I mean?
Again, I totally get it's an individual thing. I'm not a guy whose first approach to most games is my aesthetic sense. I don't study the artwork and photography in a rule book before I do anything else. I read the rules before I do anything else. And I study the mechanics. Then I'll go and read the lore section and the introduction and the scenarios. But that's an individual thing. I'm not the kind of guy who sits and studies the photographs in a book and the artwork in a book to give me a sense on how I should be playing the game. I want the rules to tell me that. But that's me. Again, we've got another couple of examples that I pulled out of books earlier. Shockingly poor, I think. Malifaux. Players should place terrain on the table and then define each terrain piece with an eye towards having a diverse selection of terrain. I think there is a word.
As diverse?
Well, I think there is a word missing on the end of the sentence. I think they actually say terrain traits. So what they mean is you should have something that's rough ground, something that provides cover, something that provides concealment, something with height. Do you know what I mean? It's the worst sort of advice that you could imagine. It just doesn't give you any ideas on what to or how to place terrain. And I'll be honest, Carnivale is a game that can be very terrain sensitive. It's a fiddly game with lots of movement shenanigans, ranged
focus.
Ranged, if it's not kept in check by lots of cover, can be massively overpowering. I think that this is people obviously get Malifaux to the point where they enjoy it, and I do that now. I can build a Malifaux table and I can make a game work. But if I was brand new and relying on just the rulebook, what the fuck? It'd be just completely random.
I've had a thought here.
Go on then. Before we move on to Carnivale, what's your thoughts, sir?
Did you go into the DZC rulebook?
I did. It is coming up.
Okay.
Carnivale. Again, Carnivale has very little other than a simple guideline would be that half of your Carnivale gaming board should have some sort of terrain feature on it, not including canals. Now, while that comment is brief, I think that is probably a really, really strong contender for a bare minimum in any rule set. Because it is such a simple thing to do. It's like, well, if you're playing on a 4x4, just start filling the table from one corner, place all of your terrain touching each other until half the table is full, then just move that around. And it's such an easy way to say, oh, have I got enough? Are the pieces big enough? Because it tells you what area you've got to cover. Now, admittedly, you could get things wrong with line of sight and stuff like that. If you do that and everything's a 1-inch high wall, you might create problems in some games. But as a bare minimum, that's not a bad little sentence, I think.
No.
I don't know what you think, mate.
No, I'm with you on that. As you say, it's the bare minimum. It tells you what you need to bring, etc.
Ewok makes a comment just before he scrolls off the screen. I think we use too much terrain when I play Kings of War. Ewok, I had the tendency to do exactly the same when I played Fantasy initially. Use far too much terrain. And the more 40k I started playing, the worse my Fantasy got. Because I kept using my 40k sense to play my Fantasy tables. And it didn't work. Fantasy should have very little terrain. Most terrain should be in the table edges to create a nice open play area, and you should maybe have 1 or 2 small line of sight or charge disrupting pieces of terrain in the middle somewhere. Dead center is not often a good idea, but slightly offset to break the table into 2/3, 1/3, so that you have a pivot point for flanks. You have something that doesn't mean you can just form a battle line and then roll up to your opponent, which is really tedious and dull. But definitely, if you're like, and you've got a little something here and a little something there and a little something there, and you're literally trying to thread units through gaps, that's a game that is going to be tedious in Kings of War and Fantasy. It's just not going to work at all. So too much of a good thing is just as bad as not enough.
Would the guys and girls at home be interested in us making some examples longer term?
What do you mean?
And detailing some of the tables that we play on and how the thought process that goes into, for example, setting up a Gaslands table and why we do things a certain way, or you with your Malifaux, or us with our Carnivale. Do you know what I mean?
That's a fucking good idea. If that would be of interest to anybody, and you think that's a good idea for a stream, just put in the comments. And we'll, because that what we could do is
even if it's just
we could take
5 minutes of us
we could do
rambling.
20 we could do 20 we could take 3 tables, build them, photograph them, and then we could have a 20-minute ramble about why we built them that way, couldn't we, man? That would probably be a good evening. So if that appeals to you, you think there's value in it, just put a comment down below and we'll have a look at it. Just before we move on to the last slide of this evening, because we're running out of time, Darren says I usually go for too much rather than too little. The thing is, Darren, again, like we've just said about rank and flank fantasy games, these block movement games, block combat games, Paul Howell says write a book. I know a publisher. Yeah, maybe that's for another year, Paul, when we've got more time. I get what you're saying, Darren, and definitely I think given the kind of games you enjoy, which is like individual models, generally low model count, smallish tables, 2 foot by 2 foot, up to about 4 by 4 max. More terrain is better than less. You will make less mistakes by having a lot of terrain than you will by having too little in most gaming systems. But as I say, Kings of War, Warhammer Fantasy, any of these rank and flank games, they're the opposite. If you try to play Warhammer Fantasy Battles in the streets of Mordheim, you will have a shit game.
Gaslands you can kind of get away with because there's the destructible terrain rules.
Yeah.
So you can just put all the scatter in and go, right, well, if it's in your way, you just hit it. And because it's tiny little pieces, it's just like driving through some pallets, etc. They're going to break and smash around you. That's fine. Just roll some dice for it to see if they got you on the way through.
And as if by magic, the shopkeeper appeared. Drop zone commander, sir, as you requested. Just before we move on to the last slide, Shakos says non-game impacting terrain is also important to make the table more than just a game mat. Do you know what? You're dead right, Shakos. And in fact, when we finished placing our terrain for a game like Malifaux or Bolt Action, when all the key pieces are down, I will then take individual hedges, trees, and just stick them randomly. And if we need to move models, we just push the tree out the way. They are literally just to make everything look a little bit prettier. And there's nothing wrong with using terrain for that. Because again, you want your games to look a spectacle. So last slide for tonight. A simple guideline, this is Drop Zone Commander. A simple guideline to follow would be that half of your Drop Zone Commander gaming boards should have some kind of scenery element on, whether that is buildings, forests, roads, or even just hills. Scenery elements don't have to be placed equidistant from each other.
So again, that equidistant comment comes because it's a future city block fighting game, and a lot of the terrain that TT Combat offer is city block. So they want to make it blatantly clear of, even if it's a city block, you don't necessarily have to have all of the roads at the same width. You can have wider avenues.
Yeah.
Have at it kind of thing.
Yeah. And there is no coincidence. There's no coincidence that Carnivale and Drop Zone Commander are by the same company. Notice that comment in there again. Half of your table should be filled with. But how do I know what half the table is? Just start filling the table from the corner. When you've filled half of it up, that's enough. Just shuffle it around. Easy.
The other thing I'm going to say on this, their scenario guides are fucking amazing.
In Drop Zone Commander, they're very specific in terms of objectives and shit. Yeah.
Where you need your big buildings, because they need to be in big buildings that can't be blown the shit out of.
That's true.
Where
the 8-inch height
buildings, that kind of thing. Where you want your, like you say, the over 8-inch height stuff, etc. That's all detailed.
Yeah.
How did you get on tonight?
I'm not even going to bother turning on the desk cam. I've done about 3 windows. People can't see. Yeah, I've done. I'm creeping across. I'm creeping across. Do you need to go to your table so you can show it off?
I can if my. Hang on.
That's fine. When you're ready, you're ready. I won't bring you up until you're ready. Reload. So, and also, scenery elements don't have to be placed equidistant from each other. Just a final comment. Again, 2 simple sentences, but they communicate so much. So what they're saying is, you don't have to spread it out like fucking filler. Just, you can have open areas and congested areas, and the contrast might give you an interesting game. They're telling you what the game will accommodate and what it won't.
Again, I've not done this yet, but I do want to play Drop Zone Commander at the edge of a city.
Yeah, you talk about that a lot. I mean, it seems to be reflected in what they're saying here. You know, create that urban area, then some wide expanse, just maybe dotted with individual things. It's definitely something we should look at playing.
I'm ready to go live.
Okay, mate. I don't have your camera up, but let me see if that's...
Should be.
Huh. It's in there.
I'm in the group and in the room.
Let me try that again. Let me refresh then.
Oh.
Okay.
No, Orinoco, go away.
Okay, I'm just going to copy the link. It might be because you time. No, don't touch anything. Let me see, because you're working okay in my Video Ninja overlay.
OBS
it's just not working in OBS. Okay. Hey, right, here you go. The table is yours, sir.
Let me just turn down the lighting so it's a little less intense and glary. So we've dry brushed all the metalwork on everything.
Orinoco, is that the Cthulhu one I showed you with the submarine?
Look at the fucking shine on the side of that dreadnought. It's almost mirror quality.
What is that you painted that with? Just oily steel or something?
It is a base coat of black and barrel, washed.
Okay.
Dry brush with gunmetal grey, then dry brush with steel.
Fuck me. Yeah, you can see your face in that, mate. What the hell?
She's shiny.
Looks pretty good.
But yeah, we've dry brushed everything, and then obviously we've got to go in and pick out like the details, the front of the rams, the wheelhouses, and then big flammable tanks, etc.
What? And you've got to put. Are you putting that red-brown color on top? Is it some sort of bronze, or is it a non-metallic? Was it a metallic
on my
copper?
Original, it's bronze with like a brown wash, and then the red itself is burnt red with a pro acryl highlight.
And are you doing that same color on all of them?
Yeah.
That red. Okay, cool. You got a couple of things here before you go. Question for David: did you pick up Deep Rock Survivors?
What? Deep Rock so, are you Deep Rock Galactic you on about? Or?
That I would guess so. I don't know what Deep Rock Survivors is, but Ewok obviously thinks you probably do.
No, I'm not using Dazzle Camouflage. Dwarves don't need Dazzle Camouflage. Not when you've got that many fucking guns on your broadside.
Yeah, not only that. To be fair, you could probably launch a tactical nuke at them and it would just sort of like do a few hull points of damage. So there's no point really camouflaging them. Also, Orinoco says, David, have you seen the vehicle digital terrain on bundle on the 7TV Kickstarter?
No, I haven't. I will go look after and I will feedback next week.
Right. Well, that's it. I think we're done. Let's go back to the main scene. Thank you very much for everybody who was in the chat tonight. You guys are awesome. You make the show in so many ways. It's just impossible to communicate how grateful we are. We hope you enjoyed the show and we hope you enjoyed the main topic. Chime in down below. What game system do you play? What does it tell you about building terrain or putting terrain on the table? Did it do a good job? Did it do a shit job? How do you generally approach it? Just experience and that's it? Or here's the thing. Are there some fantastic online resources for doing this sort of thing? Because I haven't really looked, but I wonder if it's a problem that's been solved by the community.
So, as we said earlier, if you'd like to see why we set tables out certain ways, put it in the comments,
yeah,
put it in the chat, let us know. Feedback is appreciated.
Yeah.
But this is what I was thinking about, rather than doing it as like little video content within the streams, about just doing like some pictures and a blog post.
Well, or we could just do a properly scripted shot video. I mean, to be fair, the problem we do, here's my issue with this sort of thing. My imposter syndrome is like this big. So I don't really imagine that people really would want us to teach them anything. I mean, it's one thing to sit here and waffle and provide entertainment for people who are doing constructive hobby, but maybe I'm wrong. Feel free, as I say, if you guys want us to do something like that, I can certainly think of a format that would work where we would lay out a table, photograph it, and then do like a little breakdown of this is why this is here. Don't put it here because the game will be shit. And we could even do side by sides, mate, couldn't we? Good table, poor table, and then explain why they don't work for a particular game. As I say, it's an option. Just let us know what you think. So if you can only find time to do one thing tonight, please click the like button under the video. It's a small interaction for you, but it's massive for us on YouTube. It means the video will just get shared a little bit wider by the algorithm, because there's not many people who live in our little corner of the world and want to watch this sort of thing. So we've got to really try hard to reach out for them. If you can do any of the other things, share, comment, subscribe, whatever, that's great. Fantastic. Thank you very much. We're grateful. But with anything, unless you've got anything else to say, mate, I think we are out of here and finished for another week.
This time as we leave, we will be here next week. I know in the last stream we
oh my God, now he said it.
And we weren't. So, ciao.
Right, okay, brace yourselves. Now the world's going to end. There's going to be some dramatic personal disaster for one of us. Thanks, David. Awesome.